Hey, this is the Nature Boy Ric Flair, and believe it or not, whether you like it or don't like it, learn to love it, because you have to listen to Wrestling is Real. It is the best thing going today. Woo!
The worldwide leader of podcasting excellence, the king of podcasts radio network proudly presents The Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
King of Podcast here with you with episode 811 of the Wrestling is Real podcast. Thanks for listening to the show, subscribing to it. If you haven't done so already, please do. Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, social media at King of Podcasts, X, formerly Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and of course the website kingofpodcasts.com, the YouTube channel at King of Podcasts. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so. I'd really appreciate it. WWE right now is 8 weeks away from after Survivor Series weekend, which is this Saturday. And of course, there'll be a poster right here, kingofpodcasts.com. They'll have 8 weeks. What are they going to do with it? To build up to the Royal Rumble. To get us going with WrestleMania season. Will we get anything that'll resemble some kind of momentum or push towards that time? We know that Roman Reigns is not going to be a part of this. He's taking time off. Maybe we see him in January. But for right now, what's the other things that are being talked about? Oh, CM Punk. Will he arrive in Chicago in time for Survivor Series War Games? I've seen a lot of those reports out there, and I'm like, I really don't care. And this is what the audience wants to go ahead and kind of build up. But WWE right now, not much of a plan that we're hearing about after Survivor Series. We don't know what they're going to do with their storylines, though, but we can find out. AEW tonight decides to start the Continental Classic post Full Gear. And it's leading up to their World's End pay-per-view, December 30th. So they got something to work on right now. And then they go work on Revolution after that to start off the year. Okay. So AEW has their plan. They're giving you something to kind of look at, watch, and pay attention to. We now have MJF Samoa Joe now. We're basically confirmed for World's End. And then the Continental Classic final. And then what's WWE doing? Nothing. Right now we don't know anything. Maybe something will change. Maybe something will happen where we'll get some debut or something that will kind of shake things up and stir things a little bit differently for the company than it's just the regular humdrum status quo. Because it's been status quo since SummerSlam. You do realize that. Crown Jewel didn't make much of a difference. Oh, a big spectacle, but what really happened? Right? Other than that, Survivor Series, should be fine. You got some good events going on and some good matches to set up. Some good 5-on-5s. Okay. But other than that, the company is living on its laurels right now because of what they've been able to do with the start of the year. We weren't going to get to the best of. We're going to get to the end of year review pretty much after Survivor Series because that's what we're going to work on. And we have to just really think about what are we going to get out of this company that's going to be something more important than the bloodline or at the level of the bloodline. It's not Judgment Day. It's not Drew McIntyre. It's not Cody Rhodes. It's not Jey Uso. Like what do we have? We need something more to build more interest in the product. I've taken a couple weeks now to talk about where the TV product has been suffering. The fact that, except for the pay-per-views, the product for most of these channels, for most of these promotions, can't really build up to a crescendo and do enough in between, other than put out some clips so people can keep in touch with what's going on. Because I've tuned out of the TV product. And I'll even tonight, I did flip in and out of AEW Dynamite, but it's also everybody's going through that kind of scenario. The trouble of putting out a sustainable TV product that keeps the interest of those in a social media generation. You might have this long form programming to go ahead and move along into this, but really, I talked about how where WWE really needs to do more more things where live sports are able to go ahead and keep people engaged for 3 hours at a time or 2 hours at a time. Regularly, there are sporting events that go on. There's not a lot of scripting to it. It's all the action that keep people involved for a long series. But we don't have that right now in wrestling. I don't know. And wrestling's just not doing it. I mean, having segments that, along with 3 or 4 minute commercials, it's not working. They all are doing the picture-in-picture stuff, doing a little more of that. But to keep people engaged in the product on a regular basis and have enough things to do that are going to be more than enough engagement for your lackadaisical casual wrestling fan to continue to stay involved into watching the product and be totally invested up until you get to the pay-per-view, up until you get WrestleMania or All in Wembley Stadium or whatever. I mean, that's the part we're looking at. We're trying to go ahead and figure that out, or All Out, excuse me. Meanwhile, the company doesn't care. Like, the superstars are now talking about Survivor Series, and they're just going on in their own little bubble. Okay, we got Triple H is commenting about the booking scenario and the creative that he has currently in place. Jey Uso, I'm sorry, he's putting shade out there on the other wrestling promotions and the other wrestling stars. I mean, I've gone after that story a long time ago about the fact that you do not have to be in WWE to be the end-all be-all. You do not need to be in WWE to have a successful career. I'll go and play a clip about that. I'll play a clip about that where I said the same thing years ago. Because of how certain stars, when things don't go well with the product in WWE, they decide to go and go somewhere else. Or those that come into the company and they're not at the level that they could have been if they were still out somewhere else. Right? And of course, it creates the punching down of WWE fans, that common denominator that wants to go and just punch down, and the internet wrestling community that loves to do it, to bash at everybody else. Because Jey Uso put out what would be considered in politics red meat to the base of their fan base. That's what they did. Let's take what Jey Uso talked about this week. And like I said, I'm going to go back and talk about what we were going on with the change where certain stars that go to other promotions and the fact that WWE fans really just don't want to look at anybody else going somewhere else and see them do well when they abandon WWE because, oh, God forbid, why would you leave the biggest company in the world to go somewhere else? Some bingo hall, as they would like to say. Now, in the interview with The Ringer, Jey Uso's interviewed about it and really talking about his main event level. Now, Jey feels it won't be the last time they will show the world that they're at the top of so many all-time lists. So as tag team champions, right? Or as a top-level tag team. The Usos are very much up there. In the argument as one of the best. In that argument. So he talks about other tag teams outside the company. And if there's any doubt on who Jey would like to see the Usos battle to maintain that position, he apparently is keeping a list. And he says this, quote, FTR's top tier. Well, they were the Revival, and they really didn't have much of a feud with the Usos before. Now, remember, the Revival was in WWE for a number of years. And what they did with them, they undermined basically what FTR was doing over there. I'm going to tell you like this. The FTR right now Triple H might bring them in as their current characters, right? They could do that. And then basically just drop the whole Revival thing that they had in NXT and in WWE in their first run. If that were the case. So they talk about FTR being top tier. So he would say because they worked in the company together. He also mentions the Guerrillas of Destiny in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And missing the boat on a Hardy Boys bout on SmackDown. But Jey wants to make one thing clear for any tag team wanting to make it happen. Here's what he said, quote, "If you want all these dream matches, you all going to have to bring your ass to WWE, dog, to the top tier. You all going to have to come. Where we ain't dropping down. Where we at ain't dropping down. Young Bucks, everybody, like, bring it, dog. Run it. We the ones for a reason, and I mean that, and I stand on that, bro. We're the best tag team in the world. And if you want to get detailed with it, I'm talking about on the microphone, the way we dress, the way the gear look, the way we carry ourselves, the swag, the ink, everything. The hair, the grills, the earrings, the chain, all that's real, oos. All that is real." Now, there's nothing inaccurate about what he said. Not at all. I get it. He's at the prime of his career. 38 years old, 15 years in his career. After everything that's gone on with him and his brother, they've had a very great career. And honestly, the last 4 or 5 years have been stellar years for the Usos, because they really did just lag around for a long time. They were good, but not at the level that they are now. What their Usos are right now, and they're getting attached to the bloodline, just put them on another level. They got the all-time great tag team discussion started for them right then, right before they joined the bloodline for a couple of years. When they started using the Usos Penitentiary, it was a game changer. Much more realism to their character, much more realism to themselves, and not so goofy, which is what they should have been a long time ago. And so now we have this, and there's a shade. Season of thanks, season of giving. When I decided to do an open AI generated article about how the WWE superstars have thrown shade on non-WWE wrestlers, and we got this story. Here's what was generated. Going back and asking for facts, right? The art of boasting has become a main event in itself, with the wrestlers showcasing their talent not just inside the square circle, but also in the arena of verbal jabs aimed at non-WWE wrestlers, right? So the phenomenon that the WWE superstars revel and belittling their counterparts from other wrestling promotions, whether it's New Japan Pro Wrestling, Ring of Honor, or any other thriving wrestling organization. Roman Reigns, in all his glory, he has not shied away from boasting about the alleged superiority of WWE over his competitors. He's been quick to dismiss the achievements of other wrestlers outside of the company, insinuating that they operate in some minor league while he lords over the big leagues. Now, part of that is also his character. He's being a heel. Then we have Charlotte Flair. And she's been notorious for adopting her father's figure four leg lock, but also taking down anyone outside the bubble of WWE. She rolled her eyes at the notion that wrestlers outside of the WWE could up to the so-called standards set by the largest wrestling promotion in the world. That she didn't believe that could happen. Okay. And then John Cena. Now, he wants to remark that he bleeds WWE. He's had comments about wrestlers who ply their trade and promotions outside of WWE reek of arrogance and a lack of respect for the diverse and talented individuals who contribute to the global wrestling scene. Now, in this generated article, they try to talk about the fact that some of these stars might have been chasing dreams in smaller promotions, but the stars we're talking about here, no, they were all embedded into the WWE, right? All of them. So they are going to go ahead and, they've been in the system. They've been tenured for a long time, all of them. And as long as they are, they can say what they want. And they don't have any feelings or animus about putting anyone else in their place. That everyone else is the minor leagues. And listen, that's the mentality. That's the mindset being put in that company. They're right. But it is delusional to think that WWE is the end all be all. I have said that before. Broken record. I mean, how many times can I go ahead and say about stars that don't need to be in WWE, right? I mean, think about it. When I look at some of the stars that have come in, come out, and I'm saying to myself, okay, certain stars make their way over, and it's like, as you know, in this program, I always talk about the major independents. And this is before AEW was in existence. And I always said for years that there are companies that can go ahead and do what they need to do, and they're not going to be beholden to the fact that if they're not in, these wrestlers are not in WWE, first of all, they can make money anywhere else. That's proven. We're now at the point where AEW has been able to build themselves as a pretty prominent number 2 promotion, and a lot of stars that came from WWE right now, they moved over. They left. Let me go ahead and play you a clip going back to August 2nd, 2018. And I forget how far back this episode was, but it was a while ago. Far back enough, I don't remember what the number of the episode was because I didn't count episodes until like episode 500, I think it was. But anyway, this goes back. I talk about major independents rise against the WWE machine. And here I am, August 2nd, 2018.
What are some of the things that the major independents are all doing correctly to help themselves build an audience? Well, they're all working with each other. Okay? That's number 1. Number 2, they are all working on trying to get themselves into bigger and better venues. And that's through working with each other as well, in the same respect. So all those things coming into play, plus the booking being non-WWE style, is really helping a lot of these companies. And the star power that's being made among some of the members of the wrestling elite in the major independents are standing out among multiple brands. And I would say they're more over than some wrestlers in WWE themselves. But it's a real interesting dynamic of everything that's going on this summer as we go through. And when we will really see it culminate is through a number of events coming up. For the rest of the year, we will have several shows going on that will impact, no pun intended, the major independents. And they're standing in not the mainstream of wrestling, but the hardcore wrestling fans. The real smart wrestling fans out there. No pun intended. A couple of events have already started to create some buzz. Significant buzz. Because of the venues, the crowds they're able to pull, and the kind of attention they're getting. It's all coming into play now. Everybody's starting to find their groove. And now everybody is successfully competing to build a better brand, which is something that WWE hasn't really done with their product, but meanwhile, they're still thriving on the fruits of their labor from other areas that they're doing.
And that's the idea. I'm still going back to the point that this company, they can let their stars rant and they can go ahead and let them go ahead and talk shit as much as they want because they've been coddled. I mean, here's the thing. Remember, Jey Uso is saying this under the guise of, you know what? Triple H is booking over there in the company. And if you want to go and let anybody else do the booking, maybe the Usos don't get the chance to be put over. And that's what the other issue is. Because we know it's rigged. Remember that. Young Bucks. If FTR came back. If we had Grills of Destiny, how about Aussie Open? How about, if you have any other tag teams coming from somewhere else, if they're coming into the space, well, let me just give you a few examples of stars that came in and did nothing. Listen, how about Viking Raiders? That was a pretty decently hot tag team, War Machine, back in Ring of Honor. And they move over, and what happened to them? Right? I mean, seriously, I ask myself, if there are tag teams that want to be brought over so they can go ahead and let the Usos go ahead and get their comeuppance, okay. The Hardy Boys, right? And the Hardys have been able to go and go to other organizations when necessary and do just fine. But the booking will never allow a proper booking of these stars. Because remember, no matter what, even if Vince is not there, WWE is always going to make any stars coming outside their circle, outside of their confines, outside of their developmental center, they're going to make them inferior. Remember, they all also had to go through auditions and tryouts, and, they were going to be respected at a certain level. Maybe they'll get the pay, but, at the end of it, they're not going to get to be that level of star they really were. Now, for some fans within the bubble of WWE, you might like that Ricochet and Shinsuke Nakamura and Karrion Kross are in their spots in the mid card. And, we get to see their abilities and they get to see their gimmicks and all, sure, in a better, more positive light. But it doesn't mean their wrestling's any better. It doesn't mean that their capital's any bigger. I mean, Shinsuke Nakamura is still his best matches, his best days came from New Japan. Like his real adulation, his real accolades come from Japan. It's just been a payday for him here. He hasn't been world champion. They gave him a chance at the world heavyweight title, nothing. And they've used him, but they really never used him to a point where, like NXT, sure, they might have gotten the credit he deserved there. But on the main roster, he can't talk. He's flabby. He's not going to be the top guy. Well, that's on him. But then again, some stars don't want to go through the rigorous regimen of having to look like a particular type of athlete that WWE wants, and also do the corporate thing. Remember, there are some people that don't want to be doing corporate, and I am one of them. Sure, it might look better. You might get a little more recognition for what you're doing from a different set of peers, but hardcore wrestling fans, right? The real wrestling fans out there, they want to be able to see their stars in a certain light. Because let me tell you, I mean, the FTR had some good matches within NXT and also in the main roster, but you're not going to tell me that the matches there with the Briscoes aren't any better or going to be less than what they did in WWE, right? I mean, Hardy Boys have had some pretty good matches outside of the company. I mean, they're not going to be staying in WWE just resting on their laurels of, what they did in TLC matches 20 years ago, or 25 years ago for that matter. We would have never gotten the broken Matt Hardy. We would have never gotten Brother Nero. That whole different evolutionary side, which helped to reinvigorate that tag team. They were reinvigorated, well past what they were going through. And it was wonderful. I mean, think about that. The fact that Adam Copeland, Christian Cage, they're working out a new thing where in AEW, and they're rechristening a feud. They're actually getting a chance to feud each other. They would have never gotten the chance to do that in the way they wanted to right now in WWE, right? John Moxley, the level of matches he has right now, he's like the deathmatch king, right? He'll still go out there and do work for GCW and, have his credibility like it was in CZW. Same thing. And he gets to be bloody. He gets to go and do the matches he wants. He gets to be champion. Like, John Moxley's got the run of the mill over there, and he's been booked better than he ever was as Dean Ambrose. Right? Because some other stars wouldn't have gotten the play they would have gotten. Swerve Strickland, right now, he's being positioned to be, he's going to be a champion at some point. But they're positioning him in a pretty expansive main event feud with Adam Page because of his attachment to the Elite. Had a pretty good feud going on with Full Gear itself, right? When you attach him to Hit Row, he was given baggage. Like right now, Hit Row, it's going to get split up. Like BFAB's going to go off to somebody else. And the interest in Hit Row, they're a bunch of jobbers now. Sure, they were given a chance to go back out there again, but like I said, without Swerve Scott, no. So Swerve Strickland is thriving right now in AEW. He's fine. Some of the Ring of Honor stars might not be doing as much, but they're still at a certain level when it comes to Dalton Castle or Roosh or, Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe getting to be champion. Now he's going to go out after the world title. And remember, with WWE, yeah, Triple H might have brought him back. He was the enforcer, then he got to go back on the main roster, and then he got hurt working those dates. But before that, Samoa Joe, yeah, in NXT, he was booked right. And then he gave him some time to be the big heavy on the main roster. But they quickly diminished him down. They took him down the list. For what? But again, Jey Uso is only talking about tag teams. We're not talking about the rest of the roster, but like, let's just expand it out to the rest of the roster, of the rosters in other organizations. Okay? So the shade being thrown on AEW. I mean, people do praise MJF outside of AEW. We know that. We got a lot of, legends or those that were managers, or those that were promoters or worked in a very high end, right? Notable names. They say a lot of good about MJF. And MJF, sure, could get signed over in the WWE. Right now, there was a word that MJF is among those in WWE circles that they're saying within the company, that the rumors are saying that AEW's already quietly signed MJF back onto a contract. He's been re-signed. We don't know it yet. The announcement's not been made. But he's still their world champion. His contract ends in January 2024. So he's holding on to the championship. I mean, do you let him go after 5 years and let him go to the other company? He's the face of AEW. You don't let that guy go. There's so much more to him. Like, he is the anchor. He's the franchise of the company. I believe that. Not only is he one of the pillars, but this year has been his year to solidify himself as a franchise player in that company. He is synonymous with AEW. And if WWE decided to go and bring him on board, okay, he would be limited to what he could say. He would be limited to what he can do. I mean, one thing you will say about MJF we know about is that he's loyal, very loyal. Hell, this is a story from Court Bauer, and I think it was last week, and he talked about that MJF, when he worked in the company and then he moved over to AEW, MJF still finished his dates. Man, that's trustworthy. That is a lot of respect right there. He cares about this business. The other thing too is that if you're going to go to take Jey Uso's challenge and go over there, you're going to have to work WWE style. The matches are going to be a little bit watered down because they need to get more effect for the audience. You can't go off doing, crafty moves out there too much. You can do stuff with chairs and tables and ladders, but really, like, to have just like a catch-as-catch-can or just give a good old-fashioned 2 out of 3 falls match, those don't come so often. Sometimes they do, depending on the wrestlers they put them with. But really, I mean, think about with Gunther being the long-term Intercontinental Champion. There's a style that he has to have in his matches, really a strong style match. In the WWE Universe, there's a ceiling on Gunther. Is Gunther ever going to get a chance to go after Roman Reigns and be the Universal Champion? Is he going to drop the belt? Like, vacate the Intercontinental title to go up against Roman Reigns? No. Would he do that if he had a chance to go after Seth Rollins? No. So you have that guy as a star, and honestly, you put him anywhere else and you build up, you don't have to worry about Imperium. Gunther stands alone. You don't need him to be anybody else and to attach him to anybody else. Not at all. So what do you do here? How do you take care of this? It's a good question. But as long as Jey Uso can go ahead and talk like he talks, and the company's doing well, nobody's going to really put much about it, but it's shade. When the truth is that company, the biggest wrestling company there is, needs to worry about themselves. They need to worry about getting their ship in order. This is why I do this program. Like when I went back and started to do this program some 11 years ago, coming up December 18th, some 810 episodes ago, I was basically talking about the same thing because of the fact that wrestling's real to me. And it's like, we want reality in our wrestling. We don't want it to be this story driven where it's like a certain storyline that gets to be told. And sports entertainment, well, I was raised on watching wrestling of different variations. So to get myself ready for the movie The Iron Claw coming up on Christmas Day, I went back and looked for a really incredible, it might be a very grassroots kind of raw looking documentary, but the rise and fall of World Championship Wrestling, the history of the Von Erichs, and the rise and fall of World Championship Wrestling. Let me tell you, I look at that over and over, and I've watched that. I had the DVD. And when I've watched that over and over, I mean, I can still, I mean, of course, it could have been produced like a WWE documentary, sure. Or like, you know, something out of like Dark Side of the Ring. But still, I still feel like when I look at it, the storylines, and I'm at the part where like, you know, it's get about a 2-hour documentary with a lot of stuff going on. And I got back to the point where they showed the Von Erichs against the Freebirds in their feud, which originally the Freebirds came in as faces, and that all changed. And let me tell you, man, watching that story again, incredible. Brian Harrison directed it. And it was done in 2006. It is, you can actually watch it on Amazon, but you can also find it on YouTube. It really is an incredible story. And the level of the gimmicks, the factions, like they really just did so much there. And then the level of excitement for a product like that. And remember, they were the ones to go worldwide first. They're going to consider get their program and then get it out to global syndication before Vince did. Yeah. And also being attached to the NWA. And that level. And unfortunately, with the tragedy that was the Von Erichs, with so many of those sons passing away, with David and Kerry and Mike, I mean, it's horrible. I mean, I love that Kevin has been able to go out there. Marshall and Ross have been able to go and work and do really well. Sucks they're not in MLW, and I wish we'd see them somewhere else. But for me, it's like, I look at what World Class did as a real wrestling promotion, hardcore wrestling. They fought hard. It was pure adrenaline, pure excitement. And the baby faces were tough. The heels were very crafty and, you know, conniving. It was wonderful. And such a level of just a difference that you have over there. So much more. We don't have that now. But as long as we don't, this company's going to do what they're going to do. They're going to just stay in a certain status. And of course, no, they're not relying like they did on a bunch of part-timers like they did where legends of the Attitude Era, the Ruthless Aggression Era have to keep coming back. We can't call on Undertaker and Goldberg when we need to. Logan Paul coming into space and now being a spot here as U.S. champion, yeah, that's wonderful. But we can also lead into other things that go on with Survivor Series. We'll talk about that. We'll do a precursor before we get to the Survivor Series War Games. We'll do a quick preview and predictions before we get to that. We'll do a preview of that. So there's a lot that Jey Uso said on his own career, but that one portion obviously got a lot of headlines. And I just mentioned before that those that in WWE believe that MJF has already re-signed with AEW. Nick Hausman of House of Wrestling already reported that he heard from several of his sources in WWE that MJF, they believe, has quietly re-signed with AEW, and one source stating that there have been zero talks between the two sides. And the idea of MJF entering free agency imminently is a false narrative. They believe that he has been re-signed until 2027. And another source saying 1,000%. I was told a while ago he's under a long-term deal, which is why they stopped pushing the 2024 stuff. So now let's go in here with Triple H. Speaking with Justin Barrasso at Sports Illustrated, with Fan Nation, by the way. And he talks about the inside look on the storytelling of the company. So we'll get into that. Right now, he says Paul Levesque is in the midst of especially a strong stretch of booking Raw and SmackDown. He's integrated multiple storylines into Saturday's War Games at Survivor Series, has stories for talent outside off the card, and away from the title picture. It's not like he hasn't been trying to. He has. With Vince, it was always more the main event, and then everything else kind of just trickled down, with not much interest. He talks about that in his 25-year run in the company, that was always very much at the very top of the company. There were stretches where he was operating far away from the main event, back when he was hungry just to consistently appear on the card. He says, quote, I started at zero and saw all the various stages of it. I worked basically in front of no people. I worked the biggest shows in the world. I understand the process, successes and failures. Even when you get an opportunity to move up the card, and you move back down and you're not sure if you're going to get that opportunity again, I've been there. So now he's in a position emboldened to lead the creative. But there's less interference from Vince McMahon, which is not to imply he's entirely removed from the process. He says, quote, Vince taught me years ago, you put yourself in the seats and you'll never go wrong. You got to maintain that perspective. I started out as a fan, book what people want to feel and see. He revealed his philosophy is sharing that the goal is to make people think and feel in every story. Writing this stuff is a feel. You can analyze stories and how they come together, but how does it make you feel? If you can make people feel those stories, they're going to be invested in the product. That's how we try to approach. Find that ultimate emotional place for the talent and the characters and the stories are in. And then he says respect for the fan base is also visible in the creative approach. Well, we see that part. Among the bubble, the diehard fans, the 1.8 million viewers or the 2 million viewers that will consistently watch the product no matter how bad it is. Or 1.4 million if they're not watching Monday Night Football. Quote, we don't take our fan base for granted. Remember that time where they said we're going to give you what you want? And the whole group that came out there, the whole McMahon family? Well, he's trying to go ahead and keep that promise now. And the way our talent operates is different from other generations. They want to go out there and put out the best show they can. A lot of these kids are already invested. They grew up wanting to do this. And if they didn't, they fell in love with it by learning from people who grew up wanting to be in this business, and that's how they learned to respect for it. To me, that's what makes you successful. That connection with our fan base, that's a big part of our core. Now, we do know that Randy Orton's going to join the Survivor Series 5-on-5 team with Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, Jey Uso, Sami Zayn against the match against Judgment Day. That's a great match to have start off. Great. Okay. I can appreciate that. Becky Lynch is going to join Charlotte Flair, Bianca Belair, and Shotzi at Survivor Series for their match against War Games against Damage Control. So let's get into the card they have set up for this weekend. Let's get into that first. So this weekend we have featuring War Games. So Cody Rhodes, Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, Seth Rollins, Randy Orton against Judgment Day with Finn Balor, Damian Priest, Dominic Mysterio, and JD McDonough, and extra partner Drew McIntyre, who we don't know if he's actually joined Judgment Day or not. Now, if we have them actually adding him into the Judgment Day, that might interest me. That would make that faction a little bit bigger than I thought, but here's the deal. I think what you do is that if Drew McIntyre comes in, then I think one of the other members gets dropped out, which means that goes with Finn Balor and Damian Priest. That one of those two might be subject to have some infighting with each other if Drew McIntyre comes in. Now, it's the same way where they can have Carlito join the LWO and Santos Escobar decides to go ahead and break off and turn heel. I mean, some people are probably invested in it. I'm not necessarily invested in it myself. The LWO, not really much invested in at all. It's just kind of there. It's just an attachment of what the NXT faction was with Legado del Fantasma. That's all it is. So let's just put LWO together because Ray was part of it, and let's just say, okay, we'll just do this. No, thank you. It's okay. I say the faces win on that. Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, Shotzi, Bianca Belair against Damage Control's Asuka, Io Sky, Bayley, and Kairi Sane. So to have those 4-on-4 right now, and Asuka and Kairi and Io Sky together with Bayley in their corner, and that's your new Damage Control. It's better. It's much better. I don't know where Bayley really fits in the whole system here with 3 Asian stars to kind of mix that up. But, all right. We don't know if they're all going to be staying together as a result as well, because right now, I have Io Sky and Kairi Sane. They're still very much partners as before, and Asuka and Kairi Sane was also together. So I'm wondering if Bayley gets odd person out. Gunther against The Miz for the IC title. I say Gunther wins. Rhea Ripley will beat Zoe Stark for the Women's World title. I think Santos Escobar will beat Carlito, and I think that Damage Control will beat the Faces at Survivor Series War Games. That's where I think it is. I'm going to bring up a couple more things, and we're going to wrap it up because, again, I got to do a post show for Survivor Series this coming weekend, this Saturday night, and I'll do it. It'll be on my birthday, by the way, November 25th. But I'll be here. I'm not going anywhere. I'll watch the pay-per-view from home, most likely. Not planning to go out anywhere. Like, this Thanksgiving week is going to be pretty quiet for me. Now, a couple things to add into the mix. NWA has some news. Let's bring up that. So we have another name in the mix that is becoming a free agent. Another women's star. Now, if you thought Jade Cargill was a big deal moving from AEW to NXT, no, I have one better. Now, this is nothing against Jade Cargill. You know I've already praised this woman plenty on a previous episode. But let's talk about Camille. Camille Brick, the former holder of the Mildred Burke belt. The Burke, the NWA Women's World title. And a long run. And seriously, one of the top stars that came out of NWA. Now, we've already heard the stories about Billy Corgan supposedly having some money issues and how the CW was about to go and drop NWA's programming. They were not going to put the Power episodes up. Well, I guess NWA Power right now, we don't know about what's going on with the TV deal. But the CW network is now listing their program on the CW app. NWA Power episodes have now been added to the CW streaming app. We know about the issue with NWA Samhain, and now it's all sent, but NWA Power now is going to be on now the CW app. So at least they'll now have a place where they can be seen. At the moment, they're running only the episodes from later this year, this fall, that were September 5th through October 24th. So all the new production after Hard Times. That's what they decided to do. By the way, a couple things to think about. NXT, remember all the buzz they had about what their product is doing? And there's a lot of praise for the product. There's some interesting things they're doing over there, sure. But viewership's dropped down back into the 600,000 range. And on the program, they had Los Lotharios against Malik Blade and Idris Enofi, Josh Briggs, Carmelo Hayes, Blair Davenport, Thea Hale, Eddie Thorpe, Charlie Dempsey, with Drew Gulak and Miles Bourne, Noam Dar, Chad Gable, and Leah Valkyria versus Xia Li. And those are the matches they had on NXT. Without that major star power, all the way dropped down, right? Look at that. Ratings went back down a bit. Without that star power, what is that going to be? And by the way, now that they have the CW deal, NWA, or to be NXT can kind of go where they are, and that's what they're going to do. Now back at it. I got to make this mention because I just realized this story came out that Austin Gunn of the Guns, son of Billy Gunn, has reacted to Jey Uso's comments in the Ringer. And he said, let's run it then. Just making a comment about it. Pretty much it. Not much to the story, but I wanted to make a point that there was somebody that did respond back. Anyway, back to Camille. Women's World Champion. She held that title for over 800 days. First appeared on the NWA on the Power program as Nick Aldis's insurance policy. Remember when she didn't talk? Like, what an amazing, fascinating specimen of woman. She pivoted, becoming a single star. The promotion got behind her as the face of the women's division. And we love her. PW Insider says that her deal with the promotion ends at the end of 2023, as it's up in 2024 of January. The two sides are on good terms. They can reach an agreement where she appears for them without signing an exclusive deal. She will likely get plenty of offers from other promotions. And let me tell you, any company in the right mind should go after Camille. She is absolutely one of the free agents of women of any women's division that should happen. Like right now, if TNA could go ahead and go after her, I think, oh my God, Camille and TNA would be incredible. Great matches. Camille against Jordan Grace, Camille against Deonna Purrazzo, Camille against Mickie James, Camille against, Trinity. I mean, come on. Fantastic. Camille against Masha Slamovich. Yeah, I like it. I like all that. If Scott D'Amore can put the money up, that would be great. And then what? I mean, AEW, they have a lot of women on the roster. They're kind of bloated with the roster, doing quite a good things right up, by the way. The Timeless Tony Stormer acceptance speech, fantastic. I loved it. I like Sky Blue's new direction, Julia Hart's new direction. They're doing some things here, and I like what they're doing with some of the women in the division. I do like it. I'm not bored by it. I'm not disappointed by it at all. It's been pretty good to me. I'm pretty happy with it. So I like to see what happens there. And see, by the way, I was just looking at a story that, Family Guy is going to move in March on Fox. Oh, so the 2 million viewers that watch that show, or maybe even less, you think it's going to make a big difference to move that older show to Wednesday nights, and that's going to be a big difference? And that's supposed to be the competition to Dynamite. And, WrestlingNews.co decided to make that a big deal. No, come on. That's not a big deal. Please. That's the show for tonight. So, my predictions for coming up. What did I say? Santos Escobar over Carlito? There you go. That's it. And that's the show for tonight. Come back and join me for the post show of Survivor Series, the last WWE pay-per-view of the year, premium live event. We'll talk about that coming up. And then, other than that, we'll start doing our year in review next Wednesday on the program. So come back, enjoy Survivor Series War Games, and then come back next week. Oh no, listen to the post show, and then come back to the Wrestling Zero podcast. Because wrestling